Hello everyone and welcome to part 4 of the Legalities series. Again, for time's sake, we'll be splitting this into parts A and B. So let's not waste any time and jump in when we left off at G7, Notice to Complete. Clause 1. The seller or the buyer may, on the agreed completion date, but before actual completion, may give the other notice to complete within 10 business days, excluding the date of which the note was given. Clause 2. The party giving the notice must be ready to complete. Clause 3. If the buyer fails to comply with the notice to complete, the seller may, without affecting any remedy the buyer has, A. Terminate the contract, B. Claim the deposit and any interest held on it if held by a stakeholder, C. Forfeit the deposit and any interest on it, and D. Resell the lot, and E. Claim damages from the buyer. On to clause 4. If the seller fails to comply with the notice to complete, then the buyer may, without affecting any remedy the seller may have, A. Terminate the contract, B. Recover the deposit and any interest on it from the seller or, if applicable, a stakeholder. That was a relatively short one, so on to condition G8. If the contract is brought to an end, which only has one clause. If the contract is brought lawfully to an end, then A. The buyer must return all papers to the seller and appoint them as agent to cancel any registration of the contract, and B. The seller must return the deposit and any interest on it to the buyer unless the seller is entitled to forfeit the deposit under condition G7, clause 3. And condition G9, the last we'll do in this video, landlord's license. Clause 1. Where the lot is to include leasehold land and license to assign or sublet is required, this condition G9 applies. Clause 2. The contract is conditional on that license being obtained by way of formal license if that's what the landlord requires. Clause 3. The agreed completion date is not to be earlier than the date 5 business days after the seller has given to the buyer that license has been obtained. Clause 4. The seller must A. Use all reasonable endeavours to obtain the license at the seller's expense, and B. Enter into any authorised guarantee agreement properly required. Clause 5. The buyer must promptly A. Provide references and other relevant information, and B. Comply with the landlord's lawful requirements. Clause 6. Before we end, if within 3 months of the contract date or such longer period that both parties agree on, the seller has not given any license notice to the buyer, the seller or buyer may, if not in breach of any G9 conditions, give notice to terminate the contract at any time before the seller has given license notice. That termination is without prejudice to either party for breach of G9 conditions. And that ends this video. Have a lovely day everyone, and we'll see you for part B next time.